Welcome back. We've now laid out the foundational values of American political culture: liberty, equality, self government, and limited government. In this lecture, we'll look at two big ideas that arise directly from those foundations. The first is American exceptionalism, the claim that the United States occupies a unique place among nations, and the second is political socialization, the process by which Americans, generation after generation, come to absorb these values in the first place. Let's begin with American exceptionalism. The notion of American exceptionalism refers to the idea that the United States occupies a unique and exemplary place among nations, that its founding principles, its historical development, and its political institutions are different in kind from those of other countries, not merely different in degree. The concept has deep roots in the Puritan tradition. The Puritan colonist John Winthrop, in his famous 1630 sermon, described the Massachusetts Bay Colony as a city upon a hill, a community whose example would be watched by the entire world. That phrase, city upon a hill, has echoed through American political rhetoric from the Puritans to Reagan to the present. In its modern form, American exceptionalism rests on several distinct claims. First, that the United States was founded on a universal idea, individual liberty and self-government, rather than on ethnic or cultural particularity. Second, that it developed a democratic republic before any other major nation. Third, that its lack of a feudal tradition enabled an unusual degree of social mobility and egalitarianism. And fourth, that it has a special responsibility to promote democracy and liberty around the world. The political scientist Seymour Martin Lipset defined American exceptionalism through five characteristic traits: liberty, egalitarianism, individualism, populism, and laissez-faire economics. Now, American exceptionalism is also a contested concept. Critics argue that it has been used to justify foreign policy adventurism, to deny or minimize the darker chapters of American history, including slavery, the genocide of indigenous peoples, and Jim Crow, and to resist social reforms that comparable democracies have already adopted. The political scientist Harold Koh has drawn a useful distinction here between what he calls positive exceptionalism, the United States setting a high standard for itself, and negative exceptionalism, the United States exempting itself from international norms and obligations that it promotes for everyone else. A 2026 update on exceptionalism. The credibility of the American exceptionalism narrative has been challenged by a series of events since 2016. The election and re-election of a president who openly questioned the integrity of American democratic institutions. The January 6th, 2021 assault on the U.S. Capitol by supporters of outgoing President Trump. The U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement and from the World Health Organization, and the country's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, which produced one of the highest per capita death tolls among wealthy nations. Political scientists Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt, in their book How Democracies Die from 2018, used the United States as a case study in the erosion of democratic norms, which is a striking inversion of the exceptionalist narrative. The United States studied not as the exemplar of democracy, but as a warning. As of 2026, debates over American exceptionalism are not merely academic. They shape disputes over education policy. What American history should children be taught? Foreign policy: does the U.S. still have the credibility to promote democracy abroad and constitutional reform itself? Now to the second topic for this lecture, political socialization. Political socialization is the process by which individuals acquire their political beliefs, their values, and their attitudes. It is a lifelong process, but the foundations are typically established in childhood and adolescence. And here's the most important thing to understand about it. Political socialization is not primarily a process of deliberate instruction. Individuals absorb political values through the social environments they live in, and those values often feel like common sense rather than ideology, precisely because they're so deeply embedded in everyday life. The primary agents of political socialization include the family, schools, peer groups, mass media, religious institutions, and direct political experience. The family is typically the most important early agent. Research consistently shows that children raised in households with politically engaged parents are more likely to become politically engaged themselves. And partisan identification, Democrat or Republican, is often transmitted across generations like an heirloom. Schools transmit civic values through formal civics education, through the celebration of national holidays, and through the broader ethos of democratic participation. Religious institutions, especially in the United States, where religious affiliation remains higher than in comparable democracies, transmit values that shape political attitudes on issues from abortion to poverty to foreign policy. Political socialization is shaped not only by the content of what is transmitted, but by the experiences that give political values their emotional weight. Tocqueville observed that American civic life, the dense network of voluntary associations, local governments, religious communities, and civic organizations, was the real school of democracy. It taught citizens practical habits of cooperation and collective self-governance that no textbook could replicate. You don't learn democracy by reading about it. You learn it by serving on the school board, by joining the volunteer fire department, by organizing the neighborhood watch. A 2026 update on political socialization. The rise of social media has fundamentally altered the landscape, particularly for younger Americans. For generations born after 2000, Generation Z and Generation Alpha, platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and X have become primary sources of political information and political identity formation, often more influential than family, school, or traditional media. Research by Jonathan Haidt and Jean Twenge has documented a correlation between the widespread adoption of social media and declines in adolescent mental health, in civic trust, and in engagement with traditional political institutions. At the same time, social media has enabled new forms of political mobilization. The Black Lives Matter movement, the March for Our Lives gun control movement, the climate activism of the Greta Thunberg era. All of these demonstrated how digital platforms can accelerate political identity formation and collective action among young people. But the algorithmic design of these platforms, which rewards outrage, novelty, and in group affirmation, has also been shown to accelerate political radicalization and the formation of ideologically homogeneous echo chambers, which raises a serious question about the quality of the political socialization that these platforms actually facilitate. Political socialization is also shaped by generational experience. Cohorts of Americans who came of age during the same major historical events share formative political experiences that shape their political identities for decades. The Great Depression and World War II produced a generation with strong faith in government activism. The Vietnam War and Watergate produced a generation of heightened skepticism toward government. The September 11th, 2001 attacks and the subsequent war on terror shaped the political identities of millennials. And the 2008 financial crisis, the Black Lives Matter movement, and the COVID-19 pandemic, and the political conflicts of the Trump era have shaped the political identity of Generation Z, the first generation for which digital media has been the primary medium of political socialization from adolescence onward. So we've now seen how the foundational values of American political culture become both a story Americans tell about themselves, the story of exceptionalism, and a process by which Americans transmit their political identity to the next generation. In our next lecture, we'll take all of this and apply it to the contemporary ideological map, the four big American political ideologies and the culture wars that run between them. I'll see you there.